Speaker who I missed when he came to Bali last year, and now I'm really, really excited to hear what he has to share with us today. Folks, please put your hands together for founder of here he is right now, Zach Bush, guys. No introduction needed.
Hello. Good to be with all of you. Honored to be with all of you so much. I'm so pleased to see the United Independent Movement happening. I'm so pleased to see America doing its thing of growth and stretch and friction and heat and inflammation, fever, all the things that drive us in illness is a process of regeneration, of rebirth. And I'm very excited to recognize today that there are systems at play that have been around so far before the human experience and so far before human governance. And these systems are at play within each of our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and frankly, our societies at large. And these systems have very predictable behaviors to them. And so rather than jumping into all the laws of nature, relativity, quantum physics, the biologic systems that make life possible, from the mitochondria that I'm passionate about to the connectivity of a neurologic system that nature would speak through, instead of speaking to the laws, we will look at the behaviors, because the behaviors are spectacular and they show us something glorious, is that this planet happened. And on that planet, this happens all of the time. One cell will burst into 70 trillion human cells that will each differentiate into a sovereign identity, and they will cooperate into a system of gifting in such a way that there is not a single one of the 70 trillion cells that are left behind. What this says is that beauty is absolutely inevitable. Beauty is inevitable by the laws of nature. You are miraculous. You are beautiful, and you became inevitable the moment the lightning struck the egg within your mother's womb that inspired enough energy that you would animate an ancient, inevitable soul, indelible in its beauty, and that soul would animate into a human being. The laws of nature make beauty inevitable. The behaviors of natural law create the capacity to concentrate light. The difference between physics and biology is a 10,000-fold increase in light density. The spiritual movements have mentioned that we are light beings, but I can tell you that under the scientific laboratory environment, we get to witness this every day. A human cell is 10,000 times brighter per cubic centimeter than the surface of the sun. What's the difference between physics and life is the concentration of light. That concentration of light moves through the fabric of the universe to create a constant state of adaptation. That adaptation drives diversity. That diversity is driven by this instinct for this distribution of power through a decentralized system at every level of life. That decentralization commands the necessity and the opportunity for collaboration. That collaboration drives ascension. Life is a process of ascending light energy through increasing complexities of sacred geometry. That is what happens in the womb of a mother. And so how is it that we look around at the world we're in and it behaves so differently? It is because we divorced ourselves deeply from the laws of nature in the philosophy and psyche of the human being many millions of years ago, perhaps, but certainly in the last few thousand. In these last few thousand years, we have developed all of the symptoms of separation from nature. And they are the opposite of the laws of nature. They are the opposite of the behaviors of nature. Isolation is one of the first fundamental experiences that will happen as you lose your connection to nature. From isolation, you will develop monotony of expression. You lose biodiversity and you become a monoculture of thought, a monoculture of fear, a monoculture of behavior. That monoculture drives resource scarcity. Suddenly there's not soil, there's not water, there's not air, there's not food. There is a scarcity mentality that is derived from this separation from nature, this deep abandonment disorder that exists in the minds of humanity. With the resources diminishing, we get a decline in productivity in a single field or in the minds and hearts of children. And that declining productivity leads to economic instability and collapse of societies. And in that collapse, we have this reduction in creative force. And that can be seen in our politics, it can be seen in our industries, it can be seen in our education systems, as we call them. It can be seen in the infertility of men and women on this planet. And as we get this stagnancy and infertility going, the inevitable result is war. And in my field of medicine, we have warred against everything. We have a war on obesity. We have a war on cancer. We have a war on autoimmune disease, which ironically is a war on yourself. And so from the cellular level to the macro levels, war is the inevitable result of our divorce from nature. And the laws of nature create the inevitable expression of beauty. And so this is how we have reached the state that we are in, and we are so far down this cascade from isolation to war that we have to build economies out of war. We build the largest industry on the planet right now in the war against disease. If your war is against disease and you're going to pour $5 trillion a year, United States of America, by the time we're in 2025, your $5 trillion are poured into a war on the end state of the divorce from nature. There is no way you're going to reconnect to nature through a path of war, because war is the final symptom, it is the final expression of your divorce from the inevitability of beauty. This is what it looks like in a farm field. We took the most verdant grasslands in the world, some of the most rich soil systems in the globe, and turned it into nearly 1 billion acres of monocrop. We took biodiversity and we turned it into monotony. In that, we have killed the planet's energetic system, the metabolism of the planet, and so all multicellular organs and organ systems and organisms within this planet are diminishing. Over the last 50 years, through chemical monotony, chemical farming, we have turned our extinction rates up by 10,000-fold. In the winter times, we've taken the beauty of the recovery of resources back into those soils through the natural death process of the overgrowth that would then return its nutrients into that, and we say that this is what that 1 billion acres should look like. It should be bare, clean. For that, we have the largest Dust Bowl in history going right now. We are losing 2 tons of topsoil per acre per year in the United States of America. That equates to 11% of our GDP lost in a critical resource that is the food of the future of this planet. When you divorce yourself from nature, death follows quickly because you have put yourself at war with beauty. This is the Mississippi tributaries projected down here on the map of the United States, and at the end of that Mississippi River, the mighty Mississippi is carrying nearly 2 billion pounds of glyphosate, atrazine, and the other chemicals that we grow our food and agricultural systems out of, and that red splotch in the bottom of it is the dead zone of the ocean. This is what dead water looks like. It is a monoculture of algae and planktons that are trying to detox the behavior of human beings. This is what it looks like in freshwater systems. This is what it looks like in human beings. Autism will reach 1 in 25 children this year in the United States. Attention deficit, 1 in 10 children are diagnosed and medicated with speed. Asthma is 1 in 10 children, and 1 in 4 children cannot even tolerate the food that grows on this planet anymore for the allergies they have. Diabetes is now in 1 in 4 adults. Obesity is 1 in 3. Infertility is now at 1 in 3. 1 in 3 humans in this country are now infertile. That's what the divorce of nature looks like. Major depression will happen in 50% of us. Cancer is now at 50% of American males. Females are just behind that. This is where we are as a nation. This is where we are as a peoples. My world has been dominated by this single chemical, which is organophosphate glyphosate. 4 billion pounds of this poured into the ecosystems of the world. And what it drives, ironically, as our laboratory has proved over and over again, is the beginning of the cascade that I started with. What happens when you divorce from nature is isolation. So just 2 parts per million, which is common in our food system today. These are the gut lining of your body. This is the primary boundary that sets up your self-identity at the cellular level. As you expose it to glyphosate, all the cells fall apart, and you go from an intelligent barrier system to isolated, lonely cells that are now behaving like cancer cells rather than an intelligent gatekeeper in relationship to the nature within you and around you. Isolation is the first and most profound beginning of this cascade into war. Sitting behind that is the immune system that, once exposed to the world like this, can no longer be in right relationship and will inevitably turn to the autoimmune war against self. We destroy our own bodies in the beginnings of isolation at the cellular level. At the public health level, this starts to look like a cancer epidemic. In all of our recorded history up until 1996, all of our cancers were predominantly in the Northeast and Northwest. Suddenly, we started using a chemical that would force isolation and a breakage of our relationship to nature in our own food system through genetically modified crops in 1996. And suddenly, the cancer map flipped, and cancer became an inevitable process of living in isolation from nature through the chemical agricultural system. All of that big brown splotch in the middle of our country is the density of glyphosate spraying every year that happens. That's the Mississippi River catchment, that big pink glob there. And as that grabs it, we drive the cancer rates. The straight lines on these graphs are showing you the number of acres sprayed with glyphosate, beginning the isolation. On the bars, you see the rates of leukemia, bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, liver cancer. It's a direct, inevitable result. It is impossible to avoid epidemics of disease when you begin the divorce of nature at our isolation point. Adjusted deaths from senile dementia, acres sprayed in red, bars of our elders who no longer can remember who they are as they depart the human experience. Mentioned the infertility. The black line is the decline over the last 50 years of sperm counts. We are now at 1 in 3 males infertile by sperm count, and this is what it starts to look like over the decades as you decrease the light energy within human beings. If you decrease light, you decrease life. When you move this through to our current state of affairs, you now have fetuses that are growing in the wombs of mothers that no longer know gender. The combination of atrazine and glyphosate in the waters of the womb are a final divorce from self. This is the journey we have done together. My grandchild just graduated high school, is now in college. He is one of the most amazing people I know. His heart is so explosively bright. When he graduated high school, he was moving through the crowd of kids, and the professors had lined up on either side of the track to clap each kid through. He was one of the last of the 400 kids, and when he came through, the professors broke ranks and gave him hugs. This kid is so bright. His heart is so on his sleeve. And he's so in our face of showing us what beauty and love can look like in the face of dissolution of biology. Because we are, in fact, something that preceded biology. We are ancient souls that have come into this time to shine through the darkness of a biology that's been divorced from nature to show us our original design. Our original design is beautiful. Beauty is the inevitable nature of nature. We are here to do this together. We are here to rebirth a biology at the end of all things of physiology. In our divorce from nature, we have brought ourselves to our knees. Our politics are simply a symptom, a mirror to the behaviors within our own bodies. At the cellular level, you have manifested this. And so we must, if we're going to call it a united independent movement or any other party, a forward party, whatever we're hearing these things, we must stop believing that another fractal of the same wound is going to heal us. We have to get beyond the politics if we're going to re-express society. We need to get into the miracle of life and start to trust that beauty is the inevitable expression of nature. And we need to re-embrace the beauty within us, and we need to reconnect to that. And so the behaviors of natural law is the concentration of light. Let's make sure our politics mirror that. Let's make sure our industries begin to mirror that. Let's remetric our GDP, not for productivity on the scale of a US dollar. Let's measure it on the productivity of light energy within every bite of food that we produce. The amount of light energy that is exchanged between a child and their curiosity and their creative output. Let's focus on the adaptation and capacity for reconnection that would drive biodiversity, not just of our output, but of our inputs. Let's get biodiverse inputs back into our children again. Let's let them begin to learn from nature and see the inevitability of their own beauty rather than be measured by metrics of the decline of nature within us. Decentralization is a key feature, and we must make sure that our politics begin to mirror that. Collaboration is the inevitable behavior of a nature that knows sovereignty. Sovereignty is so different than the concept of independence. Nature knows no independence, it only knows connectivity, so this should be a warning to us as an independent movement. What do we actually mean by that? Is the word even right for us? I don't know. But we must be sure that we are mimicking the laws of behavior that make beauty inevitable within us. I'm honored to be with you, and I believe we are on an ascension path. Thank you for being part of this.